Whether or not you plan to use medication or go all natural in childbirth, there's 6 tips that we've learned as doulas over the years that can help make any birth experience go a little bit smoother. Number 1 is letting go of expectations and control. This can be really difficult in this day and age, especially if you're the type that likes to be in control of everything. Birth is its own authority. That's something that I say a lot to my students in my childbirth classes. Birth is its own authority. It's going to do what it's going to do, and it's going to look different for every single family. So one of the best things that you can do when preparing for childbirth and going in on that day that you give birth is to let go of expectations and let go of the idea that it's up to you to control that entire process. Yes, there's lots of things that you can do in childbirth to help you create the kind of experience that you want to create. You can learn how to lower your stress levels. You can learn some really great techniques for comfort. You can hire a doula or surround yourself with really amazing support systems. You can dim the lights and put on music and move around. All these things are great to do, but at the end of the day, birth is its own authority. So learning to let go of that expectation, and especially letting go of guilt if things don't follow the path that you are expecting, can really set yourself up to create much happier experiences in childbirth. Tip number 2 for creating a smoother childbirth experience is, first and foremost, getting everyone on the same page. When you go in to give birth, you're going to be surrounded by nurses, providers, hospital staff that you may have never met before. So it's important to get everyone on the same page in a way that is effective. So as opposed to going into the hospital feeling like you have to put your fist up and fight off staff or nurses to get the kind of experience that you're wanting to get, we recommend quite the opposite. From our experience working in the hospitals for years, over the years, we've built really great cooperative relationships between the nurses, the midwives, the doctors even, to help our clients achieve the kind of birth that they want to achieve. And through that, we've learned that kindness is always way more effective than aggression. So instead of coming in and assuming that everyone's trying to attack you or not give you the type of birth experience that you're wanting to achieve, it's much better to come on and just introduce yourself and say, hey, we're so grateful to be here. Here's the kind of birth experience that we're wanting to have. What do you recommend? What kind of tips do you have? And, you're here to help me do that, and I really appreciate that. That kind of language can take you much further than the kind of language that kind of pits you against the people who are on your team. So have conversations with your partner, with your family. If you have a doula, have lots of conversations with her about what kind of birth experience you're wanting to achieve, and then use those support people around you to build those trusting relationships between you and the nurses and the staff and the providers that you'll be surrounded with on the day of your birth. All right, tip number 3 is during early labor, when you first start feeling those signs of labor, if possible, it's best to stay home as long as possible. Now, this isn't always possible when we have medical complications or if you have an induction, things like that. But for normal labor that progresses the standard way, early labor takes a good 12 to 18 hours on average, sometimes much longer. So you want to be spending those early hours at home because that's where you're going to be the most comfortable. When active labor starts picking up, your body's going to tell you that it's time to go to the hospital. When your contractions start getting stronger, closer together, they're lasting for about a minute and they're, let's say, 3 to 4 minutes apart, that's a good time to start thinking about going to the hospital. But early labor, unlike what you see in Hollywood, tends to be a very long, kind of boring process. So if you're doing all of early labor in the hospital, you tend to get really bored, you kind of run out of things to do, and you're not comfortable. You're not in your own environment. So our best advice is to treat early labor like almost like it's a date night with your partner. Stay home, snuggle up, watch a few movies. You can move around. Cuddling, massage, kissing, that kind of stuff is a really great thing to do in early labor. Some people even love to go so far as to distract themselves with like an actual date night, go out to dinner, or if it's lunch or breakfast, or even go see a movie in early labor. Anything that you can do to distract yourself from what's going on. Your body's going to tell you when active labor has picked up because you won't be able to ignore it anymore. You're going to have to concentrate and close your eyes and really breathe through your contractions at that point. And that's a good time to go to the hospital. If you're anywhere before that where you're noticing contractions, but they're not, that intense and you can kind of distract yourself from them, don't go to the hospital quite yet unless there's a medical need for you to do so. All right, tip number 4. This tip has to do with that time, that moment in time in childbirth right before you begin the second stage of labor, which is where you begin to push your baby down. So all through the first stage of labor, your only job has been to dilate from 0 to 10 centimeters, and it takes lots of contractions to do that. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy. By the time you start getting close to 10 centimeters, you tend to feel very like, oh my God, is this thing like over yet? Let's get it done. Let's push this baby out. Everyone's very excited when you finally get to 10 centimeters. So one piece of advice is that at that moment where you discover, maybe a provider checks you and says you're 10 centimeters, at that moment that you're 10 centimeters, my biggest advice, or our biggest advice from what we've seen at High Country Doulas, is to really take your time at that moment. And if at all possible, wait for that urge to push. So naturally, we have this reflex in us as women when we give birth. It's a reflex that tells us when it's time to push. It's something that you can't ignore. It's like sneezing or pooping, pardon the analogy, but it's very similar. It's an urge that we feel in our body that tells us, whoa, time to push. But sometimes what happens is if we're told that we're 10 centimeters and that we can start pushing because we're 10 centimeters, sometimes we go, okay, I better start pushing then. I'm ready to get this thing over with. But if we do that too soon and we don't allow our body the time to feel that reflex, sometimes this can sort of lead up to a much longer pushing phase, and that's never fun. So our biggest advice is to try to take your time and be patient and allow your body all the opportunity in the world to feel that reflex. It's okay for you to hang out at 10 centimeters. Every time you have a contraction, your baby's going to slowly be pushed down further and further until you feel that spot. Now, there is an exception to this rule. One is if baby or you are not doing well, then we might need to hurry that process up. Or if you are the rare circumstance where you will never feel that reflex to push down. That does happen. So I'm not going to say it never happens, but most women will feel that reflex, and it never hurts to give yourself some time. Let's say maybe 20 minutes or so after you've been kind of confirmed that you're 10 centimeters to allow your body to feel that reflex if at all possible. Tip number 5 is to ask your partner for what you need. Or if you have a doula, doulas can help with this too. But all throughout your laboring experience, never be afraid to communicate what your needs are. Maybe you feel scared and you just need to say that out loud, and then they can help you and talk to you. Maybe you need your foot rubbed. Maybe you need your head scratched. Maybe you need someone to fill up the tub or grab you some water or grab you a snack. Everyone is there to help you, and so just learn to communicate and express your needs. Maybe your partner's doing some fancy hip squeeze move that maybe a doula taught them how to rub your hand a certain way, and they're maybe doing it too hard or too soft. Never be afraid to express that to someone, because this is your birth and it's your body, and no one else can feel what you're feeling, and we're all there to help. So just let us know, let all your support people know what you need. And then finally, tip number 6 might seem a little self-serving, but it is to consider hiring a labor doula. There's lots of misconceptions about what labor doulas do and don't do. So I wanted to use this last part of the video to just address some of those misconceptions. First misconception is that we're there to replace your partner. This is far from the truth. In fact, my number one goal when I walk into a birth is if the partner's there and he or she wants to be involved, then my role then becomes getting that person involved as much as possible. I want to help your family create really happy memories surrounding your childbirth experience. I don't want you to think back on your birth of staring into my eyes with me helping you through those contractions. I want you to remember staring into your loved one's eyes. So long as the partner is willing and up for the task, then we are just there to guide them and help them and kind of be that whisper in their ear that says, hey, she could really use a kiss right now. Or, hey, it looks like she's having a hard time with her hips. Why don't you rub her this way or squeeze her that way? So far from replacing your partner, we're really just there to help your partner feel confident and know how to help you the most effectively. We know birth really well, but your partner knows you really well. So together, we tend to make a really great team to help you get the kind of birth experience that you're wanting. And then one last misconception that I want to mention about doulas is that some people think that doulas are only for parents that want to birth a certain way, like birth all natural or have a home birth or eat their placenta. There's lots of sort of misconceptions that are assumed about the type of clients that we work with. But we work with all types of clients. That's actually one of my favorite things about being a doula is that I get to support you in whatever your wishes are or whatever your birth philosophy is. My opinions or, what people assume about me, it doesn't matter. I'm simply there to help support you with education and physical comfort and things like that. So if you want to have an epidural or a planned C-section or not take your placenta home or not have your husband in the room, all of these things, it doesn't matter. We're there for every type of family, no matter what. We're there to support you and what your choices are. We can help you navigate those choices and figure out what's best for you, but we'll never let our own personal opinions or whatever we happen to choose to do in childbirth affect the type of care and support that we give to you. Again, I'm Samantha, one of the co-owners of High Country Doulas. Thanks for watching.